At the beginning of the story, we see Nahejo. She returns home, very tired. As she opens the door to her room, she sees a sight that takes her breath away. In the dim light of the room, her husband is seen getting intimate with another woman. Nahejo remains completely still for a moment. Her eyes widen, as if all the light has vanished from them in an instant. Her hands begin to tremble, her legs give way. Her heartbeat becomes so fast that she can hear it in her ears. But then, suddenly, she jerks her eyes open. She realizes it was all just a dream. Her eyes suddenly open. In an instant, the dream shatters and reality dawns. Nahejo is at her part-time job. The fatigue of break time must have weighed heavily on her eyelids when she inadvertently closed her eyes and had that strange, piercing dream. She takes a deep breath, as if reassuring herself that she's still in that same small store, not in a crumbling relationship. But my friends, here's a little secret. What she dreamed is going to come true one day, and in a way that will completely change Nahejo's life. She's completely unaware of this. She just straightens her apron and gets up to return to her shift. Just then, her boss stands before her. The same serious, yet somehow gentle expression on his face. He says, "Come in, Nahejo. I need to give you something." Nahejo, a little surprised, follows him into the office. The boss opens his desk drawer and takes out a white envelope, handing it to her. "Here's this month's advance." Nahejo's fingers tremble slightly as she touches the envelope. She asks softly, "Advance?" The boss nods. "Yes, the salary is 1.5 million won." The boss says in a slightly irritated tone, "I had to go to the bank myself because you didn't want an online transfer. But you're hard-working, and I don't want to lose you, so it's okay." There's anger and slight annoyance in his voice. He then asks, "Do you still need the money?" Nahejo says calmly,
"The interest rate is too high. I can't repay the loan."
The boss replies, "But your husband has started a job." Nahejo says softly, "It's just an apprenticeship. The salary is very low. Almost nothing." With that, she gets back to work. The boss stands there, watching her, perplexed. A while later, while working in the shop, Nahejo sees a happy couple. Their smiles, their ease, everything touches her. She thinks, people in love always seem happy. Be it their first love or their second, there's a glow on their faces. Perhaps youth is what gives them the courage to love again, even when their hearts are broken. Then a question slowly arises in her mind. Then Nahejo curses herself, thinking, "Is this why the love of my life is gone? Because I'm no longer young." A moment later, she composes herself and says to herself, "Look, Nahejo, you're very beautiful. This isn't just my personal opinion. It's the truth. Don't hold such things in your heart. When the right time comes, everything will be fine." Just then, her colleague comes in briskly and says a little angrily, "Look, why is everyone calling me auntie? Do I look like an aunt?" Nahejo laughs lightly and says, "I'm married, that's fine with me." But immediately, she looks at her colleague a little sternly and says, "You look so beautiful even at 33. Even if you wear the same clothes you wear here every day, you still look so fresh, so beautiful every day. So you should just keep quiet." Her colleague is a little embarrassed, a little happy to hear this. Nahejo smiles slightly, picks up her bag, and leaves for home. There's a tired look on her face. As soon as Nahejo leaves the shop, the faint smile on her face instantly vanishes. Sadness creeps into her eyes. She thinks to herself, "People say I'm beautiful. But how do they know how difficult life can be for someone? Only I know that. And why am I thinking this?" Nahejo has now reached her home. Small, quiet, but even that peace carries a heaviness. Just there, her husband Mikol appears. He's sitting in front of the TV, a look of absurd irritation etched on his face. As soon as Nahejo opens the door and comes in, Mikole wastes no time in taunting her. He says, Why do you always wear such boring clothes? Why don't you wear a little makeup like other women? Najo's voice is very low, as if she herself is afraid that her words might sound harsh. She says, "When I can't even afford the household expenses, how can I even get makeup done?" This irritates Michelle even more. Her words become even harsher, as if Najo is the reason for her failure in every little thing. Najo remains silent. But a tired thought arises in her mind. Do you even know how much makeup costs? I'm afraid to even spend 1,001. Her face is expressionless. Oh my God. Even after working so hard, she can't even spend Rs 600. Najo, heartbroken, thinks, does love really fade with time? Have I forgotten the meaning of love? Or are you the reason I feel this way? She's thinking all this about her husband. And to be honest, Najo is right. She's working so hard, and yet her husband taunts her. It's really sad. The scene changes. Najo is back at her part-time job. Her coworker asks, surprised, "You work at the butch shop on Sundays, then as a receptionist at a motel, and now here at the flower shop. Are you a machine?" Najo responds emotionlessly. "Quickly put on an apron. We have to open the shop." Okay. She returns to work, but there's a clear sadness on her face, a silent pain she doesn't share with anyone. She thinks, "I've always worked. I've never taken a vacation in my entire life. I did once, and that was when I was very sick. I never asked my parents for help. I tried my best to save my marriage. And what did I get in return?" As these thoughts deepen, the story takes us into flashbacks where Nazo's true pain, her past. There was a time when Michelle took out a huge loan in her name without telling her. Yes, in her own name, but Najo had to suffer. She simply apologized on her knees for that mistake. Such a huge loan, and just a sorry. But Najo loved her deeply, so much so that she forgave her. And now, to pay off that same loan, she's working 3 jobs. It's enough to think, why have we started hating Michelle now? Najo is lost in these thoughts when a mysterious handsome man enters the flower shop. Upon seeing him, her colleague excitedly exclaims, "Look, Rose, here he is." Najo is a little confused. "Rose? Who is he?" His colleague explains, "He comes in every day at this time. He buys food. I don't know his name, so we named him Rose Cow." The colleague moves to take his order, but the man is staring at the flower section filled with cows, as if lost in another world. Then suddenly, he walks right up to Najo, stands in front of her, and says in a calm, deep voice, "I want to order. Please take my order." Najo hesitates a bit. A strange feeling overtakes her. But she speaks. "Rose?" A faint smile appears on the man's lips. He says softly, "Yes, that's what makes you special." Najo's mind is confused. She wonders, what's wrong with him? But before he can say anything else, the man is about to turn and say something like, "Friends, this chapter ends here. Please comment to see the next chapter so we can try to make this video even better for you." Najo often thinks there are 2 kinds of people in the world. 1. Those around whom the whole world revolves, as if they were the main characters in a movie. And the other, those who are simply extras standing in the background, whose presence or absence doesn't make much difference to anyone's story. If she thinks about herself, she always feels she falls into the latter category. But this man sitting in front of her definitely seems to belong to the former. Perhaps that's why his impact was so profound. Even Najo herself couldn't understand. The scene changes. Her coworker happily approaches her and says with a smile, "Did you notice he only takes orders from you? I think he likes you. And look, he only comes here when you're at work." But Najo immediately cuts her off. In a calm, almost cold voice, she says, "This is the first time I've seen him." Hearing this, her coworker is stunned. "Is this the first time you've seen him today? He's been coming here for months. But your schedule is so tight that you're lost in yourself.
He continues, I still wonder if he really likes you or is interested in you. But Naijo says in a slightly irritated tone, don't talk nonsense. Her coworker laughs and teases her again. He was just looking at you. Naijo says sadly, without any joke, he must be crazy to be hitting on an old woman like me. The coworker laughs and says, don't you know, dating mature women is a trend these days. And who knows, maybe he's really serious about you. Anyway, you're very beautiful. Hearing this, a slight weariness appears in Naijo's eyes. She says softly, if I'm beautiful, it means all the beautiful people in this world are dead. Her colleague pauses. After a while, he says in a soft voice, you really are beautiful. Don't people say that to you? Naizu is lost in deep thought. The only thought that keeps lingering in her mind is that the man who would truly call her beautiful would never say that. And what's the point of hearing it from someone else? The colleague then says, I think you two would look good together. Why don't you give him a try? Naizu immediately replies, I have a man. The colleague is shocked. Oh, I thought you were single. So, how is your boyfriend? He loves you, doesn't he? He really loves you, doesn't he? The scene slowly shifts. We now see Naizu's house. When Neho arrives home, just then, the door slams open. Neho's husband, Michel, comes in angrily. Irritation is clearly visible on his face. Without looking at her, he says, put some hot water on me. I need to take a bath. As he says this, he throws his dirty clothes all over the room. Neho silently bows her head and begins picking them up. There's a look of tiredness on her face and a long silence in her heart. Michel returns from the shower. He sees Neho sleeping. He stares at her for a while, then comes over and attempts to get closer to her. But as he touches her, a sudden thought comes to his mind. She doesn't even work out. Yet, how does her figure remain so perfect? Why does she feel so soft? I can't remember anything else. But why isn't she reacting? He asks softly, are you sleeping? Naizu replies softly, no. Michel's face immediately tenses. He says irritably, then why aren't you reacting? Why are you lying there like a doll? You don't know? A wife's job is to please her husband. Naizu says, almost in a whisper, I'm a little tired. This makes Michel even angrier. His tone becomes harsher. He says, it's not just you being tired. Stop what you're doing. I don't want to do all this. And then he turns away and goes back to sleep. Tears flow silently from Naijo's eyes. She falls asleep while crying. The next morning. The next scene is in the morning. Naijo wakes up without her alarm. The clock strikes 6. She gathers herself and goes to the kitchen to prepare dinner for Michel. Not even time for a bath, not even a sip of water, because Michel has a habit of demanding a new dish every morning. He always eats hot food. Naijo walks very carefully, very slowly, because Michel can't stand even the slightest noise early in the morning. She cooks, slowly puts away the dishes, finishing her kitchen chores with bated breath. And through it all, she doesn't cook anything for herself. With no time left, she leaves for her part-time job on an empty stomach. Our Naijo's life is very difficult. So difficult that she can't even cook for herself. Waking up early every morning to cook for others, fulfilling the needs of others, and leaving for work on an empty stomach has become a habit for her. The scene changes. We are now at her part-time job. A small flower shop, where a faint floral fragrance lingers. The same strange man, whose eyes look at Naijo differently, is standing in front of her again. Naijo asks in a low but respectful voice, Sir, do you want a bouquet of 10 roses again? The man replies with a slight smile, Yes. Naijo begins to write the receipt, but at that very moment, a loud noise comes from her stomach. Her face fills with embarrassment. She lowers her gaze. She thinks, maybe he didn't hear the voice, and she secretly prays that's the case. But the man leaves the shop for a while without saying anything. Naijo watches him go. There's no hurry in his movements, but something seems unspoken. A little while later, he returns. He takes his order and walks out without a word. Naizu watches him go, and then her eyes fall on the counter. He's left something behind. She goes over and looks, and finds a sandwich there. Just one sandwich that he had quietly left behind. Naizu immediately picks it up and runs after him. She calls out, "Listen, listen, you left this here." The man stops. He remains silent for a moment. Then, looking into her eyes, he says softly, "Actually, this is a gift for you." Naizu is startled. She says in a panic, "No, no, I can't take this." The man asks with a slight smile, "Are you refusing because you have nothing to drink?" Then he extends his coffee cup to her and says, "I've just taken a sip of this. And don't worry. It's not poisonous. You can drink it." Nijo looks at the cup in his hand, then the sandwich, then his eyes, and only one word comes to mind, "Yes." And at this moment, this chapter ends.